The Kabbalistic tree of life is one of the oldest symbols in human history. Not many people know the exact date of its origin, but it predates most modern religions. It was preserved by the Jewish people, and its teachings have made its way into the fabric of most modern and ancient religions. The Greek and Roman gods, for example, can serve as a metaphor for the different Sephiroth of the Kabbalah. It is not just a symbol, it is a tool. Like most tools, it can be used for both good and evil purposes. Because of how the 10 Sephiroth are arranged, it makes it ideal for the memorization of lists and different concepts. It can be used as a color palette for artists. Some prefer this over the color wheel for its simplicity. At the top you have black, white, and gray. Below that you have the primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. If you combine red and yellow, you get orange, and if you combine blue and yellow, you get green. If you combine orange, yellow, and green, you get purple. And if you combine all the colors together, you get the tertiary colors represented as the earth. It represents the 7 chakra points found on the human body. It can be used in science, medicine, philosophy, engineering, as well as military tactics by studying the 4 worlds of the Cabal. A good example of this is found in the book of Genesis, in the story of Jacob's dream at Bethel. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord was in this place, and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar, and poured oil on top of it. He called this place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me, and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I can return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone I have set up as a pillar will be God's house, and all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. This story can be broken down to 4 stages. The first is the world of Astaleth, the realm of the gods. The angels ascending and descending on the stairs represent the process of creation. Jacob's encounter with God gave him the inspiration to start creating something. When he awoke, he had a vague memory of the dream, but had a purpose. This is the brainstorming or rough draft stage of creation, known as Briah. When he pours oil onto the rock, he is entering Yetzirah, which is the more detailed stage of planning. This is the blueprint stage of engineering. Finally, he enters Asaya, which is the earthly realm. This is where he puts his plans into action. There are 3 pillars. The left pillar represents the pillar of Lucifer, or justice. This pillar is the feminine, representing the left brain, and is embodied by the male. The right pillar is known as Ahriman, or the pillar of mercy. This pillar is the masculine, or right brain, and is embodied by the female. The pillars of justice and mercy both have male and female aspects to them, but are mostly dominated by one or the other. The middle pillar is the pillar of mildness, or Christ consciousness. This pillar represents the balance of mind, body, and soul. The human brain is unique to that of other species, in that our brains are separated into 2 distinct hemispheres. The left brain handles mostly analytical and logical thought. It can process complex information such as numbers in an unemotional way to figure out the best solution to a problem. The left brain is also responsible for our interpretation of the concept of time. The left brain is good at dealing with immediate danger and is responsible for our fight or flight mode skills. The right brain is the intuitive aspect of the mind. This is responsible for our imagination and creativity. The right brain handles our emotions and is meant to serve as a counterweight to the ambitions of the left brain. The balanced use of the male and female aspects of the mind is said to activate the crown chakra known as the pineal gland, or third eye. This looks like a pine cone and has retina just like our other 2 eyes. The pillars of justice and mercy have often been called the pillars of good and evil, with the pillar of justice being evil and the pillar of mercy being good. By balancing these 2 pillars, one can reach a higher consciousness. This is also known as the alchemical wedding. The beginning of the Tree of Life starts in the hidden realm of Daath, which means knowledge and is associated with the star Sirius, otherwise known as the Dog Star. It is the brightest star in the sky. This is actually a binary system consisting of 2 stars revolving around each other. A white main sequence star termed Sirius A, and a faint white dwarf star called Sirius B. In some ancient traditions, it is known as the true Son of Man, or the sun behind the sun, where man's true power originates. Knowledge has reflexive properties. It can be occulted by hiding information, or you can illuminate people by sharing information and making it freely available. Daath is related to the underworld, ruled by the Greek god Hades, who wore the cap of invisibility. This is similar to the Ring of Power in The Lord of the Rings. The cap can serve as a metaphor for the ability to conceal one's true nature by a cunning device. Francis Bacon notes, "The proverbial usage, the helmet of Pluto, which maketh the politic man go invisible, is secrecy in the council, and celerity in the execution." The realm of Daath also tells the story of Adam and Eve. Man once occupied the realm of Daath, known as the Garden of Eden. God told Adam and Eve that they could eat from any of the fruits of the garden, except for the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The serpent then tempts Eve to convince Adam to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. The mainstream interpretation of this story is that the fruit is an apple, but some people like John M. Allegro have speculated that the forbidden fruit is actually the Amanita muscaria mushroom, which is cited in his book, The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross. Once man ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, he was cast out of the Garden of Eden and down to earth. This is known as the fall of man. This story is also told subtly in 2001: A Space Odyssey, when the female ape coaxes the male ape to touch the black monolith. Filmmaker Jay Weidner has indicated that the black monolith fits the same dimensions as the screen onto which 2001 is originally projected. The earthly realm known as Malkuth, or the kingdom, is the realm that man was cast into after he ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. This realm represents the four elements: earth, air, water, and fire. It also represents the four seasons. It is associated with the Egyptian goddess Isis and the American goddess Columbia. It is the 10th realm of the tree of life, and if you combine the star of Adam and the star of Lucifer, you get a 10-pointed star. It is a symbol associated with free radicalism and individual extensionism, representing law and order in the realm of physics, concerning man and his spiritual well-being, as well as living in harmony with the natural kingdom about him, and the appreciation of its bounty, allowing for man's prosperity. This is the realm of base consciousness, often referred to as the realm of the dead. Until we get our calling to awaken, we are simply animals trapped in base consciousness. However, many people are unaware of this realm of Malkuth. We first must become aware of the Malkuth around us and within us before we can start the ascent of the tree of life. The modern era has been a giant demonstration of the Hegelian dialectic. In short, it was Nazis versus Zionism, America versus the Soviet Union.
If a person defends the activities of communist nations while consistently attacking the domestic and foreign policy of the United States, she may be a communist.
And terrorists versus you.
We did a whole lot of things that were right, but we tortured some folks.
I don't know all the facts. I don't think we all know all the facts, but I was deeply concerned that this could have been, another organized, highly organized attack on the country. And it still may be. Again, I don't know the facts, but I do know that it's really hard to protect the homeland.
If we are not aware of the Malkuth around us, we will continue to destroy ourselves. There is an infinite series of trees where each Malkuth becomes the Kether of the next one. The next realm is Yesod, or foundation. This realm balances the realms of Hod and Netsah. It also balances the realm of Tifereth. The realm of Yesod is the feminine aspect of the pillar of mildness. It is the realm of imagination represented by the moon. In Christianity, it is the part of the Holy Trinity known as the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost. In the Catholic Church, it is common belief that a person consists of a body, spirit, and soul. But this does not mean that everybody possesses all three of these things. Many within the Catholic hierarchy believe that everybody has a body and spirit, but only some have souls. The monolith in 2001, A Space Odyssey, was discovered on the moon. In Greek mythology, this realm is related to Artemis. Her Roman equivalent is Diana. She was referred to as Artemis of the Wildland, mistress of the animals. She was often depicted as a huntress carrying a bow and arrows. She was the goddess of childbirth and was protectress of the child up until the age of marriage. Her twin brother Apollo was similarly the protector of the boy child. Together the two gods were also sudden bringers of death and disease. Artemis targeted women and girls, and Apollo men and boys. In the story of the hunter Actaeon, Artemis was bathing in the woods when the hunter Actaeon stumbled across her, thus seeing her naked. He stopped and stared, amazed at her ravishing beauty. Once seen, Artemis forbade him speech. If he tried to speak, he would be changed into a stag, for the profanation of her virginity's mystery. Upon hearing the call of his hunting party, he cried out to them and immediately was changed into a stag. At this he fled deep into the woods, and doing so he came upon a pond, and upon seeing his reflection groaned. His own hounds then turned upon him and tore him to pieces, not recognizing him. The deer was one of Artemis's symbols. This is part of the spiritual transformation that one goes through in the realm of Yesod. Much like in Christianity, Jesus takes on the form of a human. Actaeon takes on the form of a stag. It is here we realize our mortality. Actaeon became a hunter, unsympathetic to the world which he takes from. By transforming his body into her personal symbol, it is through Yesod that man realizes his animalistic ways. It is through experiencing vulnerability that we can understand compassion. When occupying this realm, the spiritual experience is a vision of power. It may be vague, but the light is meant to awaken the spirit of man out of base consciousness to achieve enlightenment. The virtues of this realm are temperance and self-control. Its sin is sloth or laziness. It is associated with the number 9, which represents base consciousness. It must be reduced to 3 and then to 1. It is in this realm that we have this realization. The number 9 is also associated with the enneagram, a 9-pointed star that is used to categorize personality types. It is often used in the corporate world to separate and compartmentalize these personality types to fit their business model better. The enneagram can also be used for personal understanding. Every personality type is always in transition to the next. The base metal that Yesod represents is silver. Next is the realm of Hod, otherwise known as splendor or majesty. This realm is represented by the Greek god Hermes as well as Athena. It is embodied by the planet Mercury. Hod is the key to unlocking the mystery of form. It is also considered to be where man commits his original sin of thinking that he is separate from nature. This realm is exemplified in Kubrick's 2001 when the ape-man picks up the bone and discovers that he can use it as a weapon. It is from this pure knowledge that he gained from the monolith or the tree of knowledge that he is able to visualize the bone as a weapon and begin to bring that into the physical world. Hod gets its energy from Netsah in the form of raw desire. Hod is the force that breaks down this raw energy into different distinguishable forms and is associated with intellectuality, learning, and ritual. Its virtue is hope and truthfulness, while its sin is envy. Hod is often symbolized by a double-headed serpent. This is similar to the symbol found in a lot of medical-related things such as ambulances. Hod is the 8th realm of the Tree of Life. The number 8 is connected with the octagon, the hypercube, the tesseract, the double square, and the chaos star. The symbolic meaning of the octagon deals with regeneration, totality, infinity, rebirth, and transition. The number 8 is symbolic of renewal. The number 8 is about cycles, revolution, and progress gained on the invisible level. This symbol deals with balance, time, and more interestingly, the recycling path of energy. The octagon can have both positive and negative value attached to it, as the saying goes, as above, so below. In dark occult circles, the hypercube or tesseract is seen as the imprisonment of the soul in the physical world. The recycling path of energy, the renewal and totality of infinite regeneration in the case of the dark occultist, is the ultimate prison for the soul. Much like the ape-man in 2001 was able to tap into the infinite flow of universal truth, that being able to wield the bone as a weapon, that same energy can be used to deny others access to these truths, therefore blocking the route to the tree of life and trapping their soul in base consciousness. This same story is also told in Cain and Abel, found in the book of Genesis. The double square, one square on top of another, in any form, is more secret society symbolism. In the secret language of symbolism, one square on top of another means control of all that is right and all that is wrong, all that is just and all that is unjust, all that is positive and all that is negative. In other words, we control everything. Mark Passio points out that there is a lot of subtle mockery of police and military through this type of symbolism. The double square and the hexagon is prevalent in much of the police and military's uniforms and medals. The checkerboard pattern on many police hats is similar to the Masonic checkerboard floor, which appears to symbolize that the head of the police officer is the floor of the elite. The hat itself, which is shaped in the form of an octagon, suggests that this is where the elite derive their power from. Moreover, the shield placed over the crown chakra is meant to symbolize that the officer is trapped in base consciousness. Just the name the police can be broken down to pole eyes, signifying that they watch over everything for the elite. Another way of saying it is pole ice, because it's difficult to climb a pole made of ice. The pillar of mildness is difficult to climb because of the pole ice. Officer can be broken down to off-eye seer, signifying left brain imbalance, or the one-eye seer, referencing the Eye of Horus. In the military, the Medal of Valor can be seen as satanic through this language of symbolism, which features the double square, the octagon, as well as an eagle claw reaching into an inverted 5-pointed star. In the center is a woman with a 7-pointed crown. Simply put, this means your mind is under our control. The number 8 is associated with an 8-pointed star known as the Star of Ishtar, as well as the Chaos Star, which is associated with chaos magic. Chaos magic emphasizes the pragmatic use of belief systems and the creation of new unorthodox methods. Belief systems are seen as tools. The magicians of chaos magic can be agnostic or atheist and regard magical practice as merely psychological, not paranormal. Some chaos magicians use psychoactive drugs in practices. The Chaos Star is used in many corporate logos as well as the Central Intelligence Agency's logo. Hermes was the Greek god of herds, travel, trade, heraldry, language, athletics, and thievery. This is where the term Hermetic traditions originates. He carried a herald's wand, or Chrykion, winged boots, and sometimes a winged traveler's cap. He was the personal agent and herald of Zeus, the king of the gods. Hermaphroditos, or Hermaphroditos, the son of Aphrodite and Hermes, according to Ovid, born a remarkably handsome boy, he was transformed into an androgynous being by the union in the water by the nymph Salomachus. His name is the basis for the word hermaphrodite. It is most likely that Ovid created this story himself. Some have taken this story literally in transhumanist circles. In another story, Hermes stole cattle from his half-brother Apollo through trickery. One by one, he started pulling the hooves out of the cow's feet and reattaching them in the reverse order. The same he did to his own sandals. Then he took the herd, which now seemed to be walking backward, and he hid inside a cave. Since Apollo was the god of prophecy, he soon found out it was Hermes, and took him to Zeus to be judged. Before the eyes of Zeus, Hermes first denied everything, but in the end, he had to confess. Zeus found the story quite amusing, so he didn't punish Hermes. He only asked him to return the herd. Regretful of what he had done, Hermes then offered Apollo his lyre as a present. The lyre was a musical instrument that Hermes had created by himself out of a shell of a tortoise. Minerva was the Roman goddess of wisdom, sponsor of arts, trade, and strategy. She was born with weapons from the godhead of Jupiter. From the 2nd century onwards, the Romans equated her with the Greek goddess Athena. She was the virgin goddess of music, poetry, medicine, wisdom, commerce, weaving, crafts, and magic. She is often depicted with her sacred creature, an owl, usually named the Owl of Minerva, which symbolizes that she is connected to wisdom. The next realm is Netsah, otherwise referred to as victory, eternity, perpetuity, and endurance. Conquering an obstacle in one's way or accomplishing personal goals is the realm of Netsah. It is raw energy. It is the object of desire. It is the reason why we give form to the universe. Our unconscious desires come from Netsah. It is the power of energy to overcome all barriers and limitations, and is associated with emotion, passion, music, and dancing. Netsah provides the raw energy necessary to reach the higher levels of consciousness. This energy is then given form by Hod, manifesting unconsciously through Yesod to Malkuth, the earthly realm. There is a qualitative difference between Netsah and the two Sephiroth above it. Hokhmah and Hesed pour their energy out in a constant unchanging stream. Netsah, on the other hand, pulsates. There are periods of intense activity interspread with periods of rest. Netsah can be viewed as the urge to dominate. Hod, on the other hand, is the urge to be dominated. It is embodied by the planet Venus, and its base metal is copper. Netsah is connected to the Greek goddess Aphrodite, who is also referred to as Lady Cytherea or Lady Cyprus. Because of her immense beauty, Zeus fears that the other gods will become violent with each other in their rivalry to possess her. To forestall this, he forces her to marry Hephaestus, a dour, humorless god of smithing. Hephaestus is one of the most even-tempered of the Hellenic deities, but in the Odyssey she is portrayed as preferring Ares, the god of war. Hephaestus is overjoyed to be married to the goddess of beauty and forges her beautiful jewelry, including the cestus, a girdle that makes her even more irresistible to men. Because of her immense beauty and dissatisfaction with her marriage, her adulterous actions oftentimes had serious consequences, such as the Trojan War. Netsah can also be represented by the Greek god Pan, the son of Hermes, and the Greek god of shepherds and nature. Pan was a great musician who is known for his invention of the syrinx, or Greek pan flute. The sound of his pipes was so sweet that he grew proud, and believing himself to be greater than the chief musician of the gods, Apollo, the sun god, he challenged Apollo to a musical duel. Apollo consented to the test, for he wished to punish Pan's vanity while overlooking his own well-known arrogance. Pan and Apollo chose the mountain Tmolus to be the judge of the contest, since no one is so old and wise as the hills. When Pan and Apollo came before Tmolus for the duel, their followers came with them to hear, and one of those who came with Pan was a mortal named Midas. First Pan played. He blew on his reed pipes and came out a tune so wild, yet so coaxing that the birds hopped from the trees to get near. The squirrels came running from their holes, and the very trees swayed as if they wanted to dance. The fans laughed aloud for joy as the melody tickled their furry little ears. The Midas thought it was the sweetest music in the world. Then Apollo rose, and in his hands he held a golden lyre. When he touched the strings of the lyre, such music stole upon the air as never god nor mortal heard before. Wild creatures of the wood crouched still as stone. The trees kept every leaf from rustling. Earth and air were as silent as a dream. When Apollo stopped playing, it was like bidding farewell to one's father and mother. When the spell of Apollo's music was broken, the hearers fell at Apollo's feet and proclaimed him the winner. All but Midas, who alone would not admit that the music was better than Pan's. "If thine ears are so dull, mortal," said Apollo, "they shall take the shape that best suits them." Apollo touched the ears of Midas. They grew long, pointed, and furry. They were the ears of an ass. Netsah is also the seventh realm of the Tree of Life. The number 7 is associated with perfection. The number associated with the enlightened man is 777, intellect, ego, and compassion. The planetary bodies correlate with 7 days of the week, 7 days of creation, seven dimensions, the 7 gospels, the 7 chakras, there are 7 colors of the rainbow, which, alchemically speaking, is a bridge that spans the gap between the mundane and the enlightened. There are 7 musical tones that correlate to each of these colors. Manipulation and utilization of these colors will serve as a progressive path to the evolution of consciousness. The number 7 is used in multiple ways. The Statue of Liberty has a 7-pointed crown. There are 7 virtues and 7 sins, the 7 virtues being prudence, temperance, charity, justice, fortitude, faith, and hope. The 7 sins being greed, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, pride, and envy. The virtues for Netsah are unselfishness and true justice. Its sin is lust and unbridled passion. Everything that is organized in any cosmos must be done to the law of 7.
The magic 7.
As I covered in one of my previous films, The Devil Runs Metropolis, which analyzes some of the aspects of the 1927 film Metropolis, the character John Fredersen is having trouble keeping the workers in line and discovers that they are having secret meetings in the depths of Metropolis. All the workers follow a woman named Maria who gives sermons in a secret cathedral that they had built. John Fredersen is afraid that the workers will rebel and take over Metropolis, so he decides his best option would be to destroy the faith that the men had in this woman to lead them astray. So Fredersen had a scientist named Rotwang capture this woman to bring about what they called the Whore of Babylon, the physical embodiment of the 7 deadly sins. They achieve this by subjecting Maria to satanic ritual abuse, which creates the condition of MPD, or multiple personality disorder, and thus the individual becomes easier to control. After she is put under this mind control ritual, she then led the workers astray by convincing them to destroy their own machines. The creation of this type of chaos is always used as a form of control to keep the masses trapped in base consciousness. police badges have the inverted seven-pointed star, one has to wonder why the seven-pointed star is usually inverted when it comes to the police. The next realm is known as Tifereth, otherwise known as balance, integration, or beauty. It is also the sun within the Holy Trinity of Christianity. It is the physical embodiment of God as man. Tifereth is the force that integrates the sephirah of Hesed, compassion, and Geburah, strength or judgment. These two forces are respectively expansive, giving, and restrictive, receiving. They must be balanced in perfect proportion by balancing compassion with discipline. In all cases of energy transformation, a sacrifice is necessary, so a new form can be born. Conflicting forces must be harmonized in order for the creation to flower forth. Tifereth also balances Netsah and Hod in a similar manner. It is the sun that gives light and life, even though it did not create itself. It is connected to all other Sephiroth except Malkuth via the subjective paths of the unconscious. Venus is the ruler of number 6, which causes numeric vibrations of harmony, love, beauty, and unification. 6s deal with the joining of opposites together. It is also referred to as Zeranpin, which is the combination of Hesed, Geburah, Hod, Netsah, Yesod, and Tifereth. Its base metal is gold. Its virtue is faith and devotion to the great work. Its sin is pride, that is, believing that one is essentially better than others, failing to acknowledge the accomplishments of others, and excessive admiration of the personal self. This is the most serious of the 7 deadly sins, as it is the source of the other sins. Tifereth is associated with the Greek gods Dionysus and Apollo, and is embodied by the sun. In Greek mythology, Apollo and Dionysus are both sons of Zeus. Apollo is the god of reason and the rational, while Dionysus is the god of the irrational and chaos. The Greeks did not consider the two gods to be opposite rivals, although the two deities were interlacing by nature. Apollo was an oracular god, the prophetic deity of the Delphic oracle. Medicine and healing are associated with Apollo, whether through the god himself or mediated through his son Asclepius. Apollo functioned as the patron god of music and poetry. Hermes created the lyre for him, and the instrument became a common attribute of Apollo. Apollo chased the nymph Daphne. The god's infatuation was caused by an arrow from Eros, who wanted to make Apollo pay for making fun of his archery skills, and to demonstrate the power of love's arrow. This is referred to as Apollo's lapse of majesty. Daphne prays for help to the god Gaia, spirit of the earth, and is transformed into a laurel. A heavy numbness seized her limbs. Thin bark closed over her breasts. Her hair turned into leaves, her arms into branches. Her feet, so swift a moment ago, struck fast, slow-growing roots. Her face was lost in the canopy. Only her shining beauty was left. Apollo is mainly an ethical deity. Dionysus is the productive, overflowing, and intoxicating power of nature, which carries man away from his usual quiet, sober mode of living. Wine is the most natural and appropriate symbol of that power, and therefore is called the fruit of Dionysus. Dionysus is therefore the god of wine, the inventor and teacher of its cultivation, the giver of joy, the disperser of grief and sorrow. His other attributes also include the thyrsus, a pine cone-tipped staff. The pine cone symbol is important in ancient civilizations. The pine cone symbol is reminiscent of the pineal gland found in the center of the human brain. The pineal gland produces melatonin, a serotonin-derived hormone. It affects the modulation of sleep patterns in both seasonal and circadian rhythms. The gland has been compared to the photoreceptive, so-called third parietal eye. René Descartes believed the pineal gland to be the principal seat of the soul and viewed it as the third eye. The number 6 is aligned with the cube, hexagon, and hexagram. Each of these shapes is created from perfectly equal parts. 6 is the symbol of perfect union. It is the emblem of soulful integration. The number 6 is expressed in the form of bees, which build their nests out of neatly formed hexagons. A perfectly shaped hexagon is also found on the planet Saturn. If you take two triangles, one inverted and one right side up, you get a 6-pointed star. This star can also be viewed as a three-dimensional object as well by combining two pyramids together. This is referred to as the Merkabah, which is a multi-layered analogy that offers insight into the nature of man, the ecosystem, the world, and teaches self-refinement. This symbol is also representative of the Jewish Star of David and is found on the Israeli flag. This symbol is also used with special police and sheriffs. This symbol is also used in Masonry circles. The next realm is Geburah, which means strength. Hesed and Geburah work together to create an inner balance to the soul's approach to the outside world. The strength of Geburah becomes the power and forcefulness to implement one's innate desire of Hesed. This realm is associated with the Greek god Ares, the god of war, and is embodied by the planet Mars. In Greek mythology, Aphrodite regulates Ares to achieve strength through compassion. It is the restraining might of Geburah to overcome one's enemies, be they from without or from within. The untethered actions of Geburah would see mankind being severely punished for even the smallest deviation from the divine will. This would negate the need for free will simply because the populace would be cowed into submission. The virtue of this realm is fortitude, which is the strength of mind that enables a person to encounter danger or bear pain or adversity with courage. The sin of this realm is anger and rage. Geburah is the fifth realm of the Tree of Life. The five-pointed star is of great significance in the Hermetic traditions. The 5 points represent the arms, legs, and head of man. The 2 points at the bottom representing duality, and the 3 points at the top represent the trivium, creating the alchemical wedding, represented in the apex at the top of the star. 5 fingers, 5 toes, 5 tactile senses. These associations give the number 5 a link to the physical world. The Greeks marveled over the philosophy of 5 and recognized the pentagram as the perfect symbol to represent the elements of water, air, earth, and fire, plus a fifth element as a unifying factor. If you turn the star upside down, it becomes Luciferian, forming the head of Baphomet, 3 points down and 2 up, thus rejecting the trivium and raising duality. When our world is viewed through this lens, one has to wonder if many of our political systems and institutions are Luciferian. A simple example of this is the Republicans and Democrats in the United States. The Republicans appeal to left-brain aspects of consciousness, and the Democrats appeal to the right-brain aspects of consciousness. Ironically, the right and left wing of the political spectrum are opposite to that which part of the brain they correspond to. Both these parties tend to create division within people instead of stressing the similarities of people. But why create all this division and destruction in the world? The answer is simple. The more off balance a person is, the more easily they are controlled and not able to get out of base consciousness. The Luciferians have a philosophy of intellect, ego without compassion. The next realm is Hesed. This realm is known as compassion or mercy. The political theorist Daniel Eleazar has suggested that Hesed cannot easily be translated into English, but it means something like loving covenant obligation. It is represented by the Greek god Zeus and is embodied by the planet Jupiter. The realm of Hesed is meant for seeing the big picture and formulating the archetypal idea. The planet Jupiter is featured in the film version of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Everything that happens has mercy at its core, even those things that we mistakenly perceive as being anything but merciful. Too much mercy would lead to unrestricted behavior by any moral code. It would negate the need for people to actively use their free will to choose the good over the bad. Punishment for evil deeds would not exist. Hesed reflects into Hod through the Christ center of Tifereth. For consciousness to rise from form to force, and for force to descend to form, it must pass through the center of equilibrium and redemption. It is here that man receives the inspirations which he works out on the planes of form. It is here that he meets the masters of spiritual influences, contacted telepathically, without any intermingling of personality. base metal is tin. In the myth of the War of the Titans, it was foretold that a son of Kronos, ruler of Saturn and time, would rise up and dethrone him. In response to this, Saturn ate all of his children when they were born to prevent this. Rhea, Saturn's wife, wanted to prevent her sixth child, Jupiter, from being eaten, so she fooled him and fed him a stone in cloth instead. She then hid Zeus in a cave on Mount Ida in Crete, where Zeus was raised by Gaia, spirit of the earth. Once Zeus was of age, he returned and forced Kronos to disgorge the other children in the reverse order which they had been swallowed, the oldest becoming the last and the youngest. Then Zeus released the brothers of Kronos, the Gigantes, the Hecatoreus, and the Cyclops, who gave him thunder and lightning, which had previously been hidden by Gaia. Zeus and his siblings together overthrew Kronos and the other Titans. Hera and Zeus, otherwise known as Jupiter and Juno, have a similar relationship to that of Aphrodite and Ares. The number associated with Hesed is 4, and it is symbolized by the square. The square and its three-dimensional equivalent, the cube, is the most stable of forms. The cube has 6 sides. Unraveling the cube unveils the secrets of the crucifixion. The Kaaba in Mecca is a cuboid building at the center of Islam's most sacred mosque in Saudi Arabia. It is the most sacred point within the most sacred mosque, making it the most sacred location in Islam. The Kaaba is said to be built from a sacred brick stone. Islamic tradition holds that the stone fell from the heavens to show Adam and Eve where to build an altar, which became the first temple of earth. Muslims believe that the stone was originally pure and dazzling white, but has since turned black because of the sins of people. The black stone inside the Kaaba has been speculated to be the Benben stone found in Heliopolis, Egypt, which would connect it to the pyramids in Egypt. The sphere is a large metallic structure by German sculptor Fritz Koenig. The sculpture used to sit at the site of the World Trade Center. It rotated every 24 hours. The artwork is meant to symbolize world peace through world trade, and was placed at the center of a ring of fountains and other decorative touches designed by Trade Center architect Minoru Yamasaki to mimic the Grand Mosque of Mecca, in which the sphere stood at the place of Kaaba. The sphere also bears a striking resemblance to the Titan Atlas. The number 4 can also be the archetype of the 4 elements: earth, air, water, and fire. The 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. The quadrivium is also associated with the number 4: arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Quadrivium was considered to be the preparatory work for serious study of philosophy and theology. In the Hermetic Kabbalah, the point of Daath is also referred to as the abyss. The only way to cross this is to totally renounce all attachments to the egocentric I and commit oneself to the I of Kether. Crossing the abyss is quite literally a leap of faith. When the Kabbalist reaches the level of Daath, he or she is faced with a stark choice: either renounce all that has gone before and with faith go forward into the unknown, or turn back. If a person moves forward with true faith, then the abyss is revealed as an illusion. If there is any lingering doubt, then the Kabbalist plunges into a true abyss of their own making. Zeus sent most of the Titans to Tartarus to punish them for fighting against him in the War of the Titans, but since the second-generation Titan Prometheus had not sided with his aunts, uncles, and brother Atlas, Zeus spared him. Zeus then assigned Prometheus the task of forming man from water and earth, which Prometheus did, but in the process became fonder of man than Zeus had anticipated. Zeus didn't share Prometheus' feelings and wanted to prevent man from having power, especially over fire. Prometheus cared more for man than for the wrath of the increasingly powerful autocratic king of the gods, so he stole fire from Zeus's lightning and concealed it in a hollow stalk of fennel and brought it to man. Prometheus also stole skills from Hephaestus and Athena to give to man. The next stage in Prometheus' career as benefactor of mankind came when Zeus and he were developing the ceremonial forms for animal sacrifice. The astute Prometheus devised a way to help man. He divided the slaughtered animal parts into 2 packets. In one was the ox meat and innards wrapped in stomach lining. In the other packet, the ox bones were wrapped in its own rich fat. One would go to the gods, the other to the humans making the sacrifice. Prometheus presented Zeus with a choice between the 2. Zeus took the deceptively richer appearing fat-encased but inedible bones. As a result of Prometheus' trick, forever after, whenever man sacrificed to the gods, he would be able to feast on the meat so long as he burned the bones as an offering to the gods. Zeus reacted to these tricks by presenting man with a gift, Pandora, the first woman. While Prometheus may have created man, woman was a different kind of creature. She came from the forge of Hephaestus, beautiful as a goddess, but deceptive. Zeus presented her as a bride to Prometheus' brother, Epinethus. Prometheus had the gift of thinking ahead, but Prometheus was only capable of afterthought. So Prometheus, expecting retribution for his audacity, had warned his brother against accepting gifts from Zeus. Zeus gave the gods crafted Pandora as bride to Prometheus, along with a box that they were instructed to keep closed. Prometheus was dazzled by Pandora and forgot the advice of his persistent brother. Prometheus was still not awed by the might of Zeus and continued to defy him, refusing to warn him of the dangers of the nymph Thetis, future mother of Achilles. Zeus had tried punishing Prometheus through his loved ones, but this time he decided to punish him more directly. He ordered Hermes to chain Prometheus to Mount Caucasus, where a vulture ate his ever-regenerating liver each day. Eventually, Hercules rescued Prometheus, and Zeus and the Titan were reconciled. Prometheus had created a human man named Deucalion. Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha were spared by Zeus after he had created a great flood to purge the evil humans from the earth. They were able to survive because they stayed on a giant boat and landed on Mount Parnassus. This is similar to the flood story in the Bible. They sought help from the oracle Themis. Following the oracle's advice, they threw stones over their shoulders. From those thrown by Deucalion sprang men. From those thrown by Pyrrha came women. They then had their own child, a boy whom they called Helen, and after whom the Greeks were named Helles. Binah is the next realm. This is the realm of understanding or contemplation. It is likened to a palace of mirrors that reflects the pure light of Hokhmah or wisdom, increasing and multiplying it in an infinite variety of ways. Binah is processed wisdom, also known as deductive reasoning, while Hokhmah is the fuel, pure energy. Binah is the engine, pure receptivity. Either one without the other is useless. Binah's virtue is prudence, which is the ability to govern and discipline oneself by the use of reason. Although prudence itself does not perform any actions and is concerned solely with knowledge, all virtues are regulated by it, distinguishing when acts are courageous as opposed to reckless and cowardly. Its sin is greed. Binah is the first feminine Tifereth. It is the female that we encounter the concept of nurturing. Binah is impregnated by the thought of Hokhmah. This thought is nurtured to produce something that is greater than the sum of its parts, Hokhmah plus Binah. Its base metal is lead. Three is related to the triangle in its three-dimensional counterpart, the pyramid. Oftentimes you will see in different ways a triangle on top of a square, or a pyramid on top of a cube. This means the forming of nature into something greater. The triangle represents all art and creation. The meaning of three deals with finding balance between the two pillars of the tree of life. This is the culmination of opposing forces. Three demands that we open our minds and absolve ourselves from rigidity and construct in order to remove contradiction and embrace all that three represents. Spirit, mind, body. Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Mother, Father, Child. Past, present, future. Power, intellect, love. Creator, destroyer, sustainer. Creation, preservation, destruction. Thought, feeling, emotion. Grammar, logic, rhetoric. Intellect, ego, and compassion. Or the unholy alliance of God, government, and business. There are three pillars on the Tree of Life. There are also three pyramids located in Giza. These pyramids are aligned with Orion's belt, which consists of three stars. There was a sculpture of the three pyramids of Giza that used to sit at the site of the World Trade Center in New York, where three buildings were destroyed on September 11, 2001. Like the pyramids of Giza and the pillars on the Masonic tracing board, there were two large buildings and a third smaller building that was destroyed. This was a satanic occultic ritual celebrating the raising of duality and the destruction of the trivium. Binah is related to the Greek god Kronos, the ruler of time, time being the main factor inevitably leading to the death of mortals. Traditional representations of the Grim Reaper originate from the attributes of the god Saturn, who held the sickle, which he slain his father Uranus. Kronos represents the destructive ravages of time, which consumed all things. Kronos envied his father's power as ruler of the universe, while Uranus was oppressive towards Gaia, Saturn's mother. Uranus hid the gigantic youngest children of Gaia, the hundred-handed Hecatoreus and the one-eyed Cyclops in the Tartarus, so that they would not see the light. Gaia created the great sickle and gathered together Kronos and his brothers to persuade them to castrate Uranus. Only Kronos was willing to do the deed, so Gaia gave him the sickle and placed him in ambush. When Uranus met with Gaia, Kronos attacked him with the sickle, castrating him and casting his testicles into the sea. From the blood that spilled out of Uranus and fell upon the earth, created the Gingates, the Irwines, and the Melii were all produced from the blood. The testicles produced a white foam from which the goddess Aphrodite emerged. Uranus threatened vengeance and called his sons Titans for overstepping their boundaries and daring to commit such an act. After dispatching Uranus, Kronos re-imprisoned the Hecatorius and the Cyclops and set the dragon camp to guard them. He and his sister Rhea took the throne of the world as king and queen. The period which Kronos ruled was called the Golden Age, as the people of that time had no need for rules. Everyone did the right thing, and immorality was absent. Binah is embodied by the planet Saturn, which is featured in the book version of the Arthur C. Clarke novel 2001: A Space Odyssey. The novel 2001, amongst other sources, have speculated about Saturn and the planet's connection with the origins of humanity.
For the rings, as had been known since the 19th century, were not solid. That was a mechanical impossibility. They consisted of countless myriads of fragments, perhaps the remains of a moon that had come too close and had been torn to pieces by the great planet's tidal pull. Whatever their origin, the human race was fortunate to have seen such a wonder. It could exist for only a brief moment of time in the history of the solar system. As long ago as 1945, a British astronomer had pointed out that the rings were ephemeral. Gravitational forces were at work which would soon destroy them. Taking this argument backward in time, it therefore followed that they had been created only recently, a mere 2 or 3 million years ago. But no one had ever given the slightest thought to the curious coincidence that the rings of Saturn had been born at the same time as the human race.
There is a perfect hexagon on the surface of Saturn. In alchemy, the black cube represents perfection of nature. Three-dimensionally, the black cube fits into a hexagon perfectly. Sometimes too much logic and attention to detail can lead to false ideologies like those mentioned in 2001. We are now nearly capable of building and implementing many of the ideas mentioned in 2001. The idea of building machines that we can upload our base consciousness into in order to escape death might seem like a good idea on the surface, but are we just building prisons for our souls in the end result?
All resistance is hopeless. number one.
And eventually, even the brain might go. As the seat of consciousness, it was not essential. The development of electronic intelligence had proved that. The conflict between mind and machine might be resolved at last in the eternal truce of complete symbiosis. But was even this the end? A few mystically inclined biologists went still further. They speculated, taking their cues from the beliefs of many religions, that mind would eventually free itself from matter. The robot body, like the flesh and blood one, would be no more than a stepping stone to something which, long ago, men had called spirit. And if there was anything beyond that, its name could only be God.
In the book version of 2001, A Space Odyssey, Commander Dave Bowman is given a mission to go to one of Saturn's moons named Iapetus.
The ship, moving more and more slowly now, was emerging into day. It could no longer escape from the sun, or even from Saturn, but it was still moving swiftly enough to rise away from the planet until it grazed the orbit of Iapetus, 2 million miles out. It would take Discovery 14 days to make that climb, as she coasted once more, though in reverse order, across the paths of all the inner moons. One by one she would cut through the orbits of Janus, Mimas, Enceladus, Tethys, Dione, Rhea, Titan, Hyperion, worlds bearing the names of gods and goddesses who had vanished only yesterday, as time was counted here. Then she would meet Iapetus, and must make her rendezvous. If she failed, she would fall back toward Saturn and repeat her 28-day ellipse indefinitely.
When the monolith was unburied on Earth's moon, it emitted a beam of radiation that was directed at Saturn. The authorities on Earth told Dave Bowman that they wanted to gather as much information about the alien civilization before they prepared the public for a possible encounter with these creatures.
So let me remind you that Cassini, who discovered Iapetus in 1671, also observed that it was 6 times brighter on one side of its orbit than the other. This is an extraordinary ratio, and there has never been a satisfactory explanation for it. Iapetus is so small, about 800 miles in diameter, that even in the lunar telescopes its disk is barely visible, but there seems to be a brilliant, curiously symmetrical spot on one face, and this may be connected with TMA1. We are all praying that you can still provide us with some facts for a preliminary announcement. The secret cannot be kept indefinitely. At the moment, we do not know whether to hope or fear. We do not know if, out on the moons of Saturn, you will meet with good or with evil, or only with ruins 1,000 times older than Troy. Bowman became aware of a disturbing obsession. He never mentioned it in his conversations, or rather his running commentaries, with Mission Control, because it might have seemed that he was already suffering from delusions. Perhaps, indeed, he was, for he had half convinced himself that the bright ellipse set against the dark background of the satellite was a huge, empty eye, staring at him as he approached. It was an eye without a pupil, for nowhere could he see anything to mar its perfect blankness. Not until the ship was only 50,000 miles out, and Iapetus was twice as large as Earth's familiar moon, did he notice the tiny black dot at the exact center of the ellipse. I'm coming round to the daylight side again, and it's just as I reported on the last orbit. This place seems to have only two kinds of surface material. The black stuff looks burned, almost like charcoal, and with the same kind of texture as far as I can judge in the telescope. In fact, it reminds me very much of burned toast. I still can't make any sense of the wide area. It starts at an absolutely sharp-edged boundary and shows no surface detail at all. It could even be a liquid. It's flat enough. I don't know what impression you've got from the videos I've transmitted, but if you picture a sea of frozen milk, you'll get the idea exactly.
What Dave Bowman discovered on Iapetus was a stargate, a gateway to the stars.
There's something ahead just where I calculated. It's coming up over the horizon, and so is Saturn, in almost the same quarter of the sky. I'll move to the telescope. Hello. It looks like some kind of building, completely black, quite hard to see. No windows or any other features, just a big vertical slab. It must be at least a mile high to be visible from this distance. It reminds me... Of course. It's just like the thing you found on the moon. This is TMA-1's big brother.
The Iapetus also bears a striking resemblance to the Death Star in Star Wars. Saturn is often worshipped in secret societies. Professor Carol Quigley, author of Tragedy and Hope, as well as the Anglo-American establishment, often talked about rings within rings within rings when speaking about how power systems operate in the modern world. There is an inner core of intimate associates who unquestionably knew that they were members of a group devoted to a common purpose, and an outer circle of a larger number of whom the inner circle acted by personal persuasion, patronage, distribution, and social pressure. It is probable that most members of the outer circle were not conscious of the fact that they were being used by a secret society. The choice of Iapetus is an interesting one because of the resemblance it bears to the yin-yang symbol, which is the integration of the sacred masculine and feminine. The meaning of number 2 is also a numerical representation of karma. Karma refers to cause and effect. The number 2 represents the natural universal law of cause and effect. Iapetus is one of the brothers of Kronos that helped to overthrow Neptune. He has been described as the god of mortality. Krios, Koios, Hyperion, and Iapetus were posted at the four corners of the world, where they seized hold of the sky god. Iapetus was posted at the western corner. His son Atlas later held this position after the Titans were overthrown by Jupiter. Zeus condemned Atlas to stand at the western edge of Gaia, the earth, to hold up Uranus on his shoulders and prevent the two from resuming their primordial embrace. Thus he was Atlas Telamon, enduring Atlas, and became a doublet of Koios, the embodiment of the celestial axis around which the heavens revolve. A lost page of Pindar reveals that Hercules later built the two great pillars of Hercules to hold up the sky away from the earth, liberating Atlas much as he liberated Prometheus. Daath and Kether are the same Tifereth from two different aspects. The Qliphoth is the representation of evil or impure spiritual forces in Jewish mysticism. In the Hermetic Kabbalah, contact is sought with the Qliphoth as part of the process of human self-knowledge. Thamiel, twins of God, is the name of one of the Qliphoth in the Kabbalah, the shadow side of the Kabbalistic tree of life. While Kether is concerned with the unity of God, Thamiel represents the dual contending forces struggling and is represented by two giant heads with bat-like wings. This means the refusal of Kether, the pure spirit, to find contemplation and self-realization through the act of emanation and creation, terminating in Malkuth. Satan therefore represents spiritual pride and arrogance. It is that principle which would seek to insist on the separate reality of either pole at the expense of the other, and thus impair the original holiness of the divine experience as the reality by trying to sever the all-important link between own and other, and consign each to mutually exclusive isolation in absurdity. One must confront the Qliphoth and understand its motives in order to maintain the integrity of the Kabbalah. In conclusion, we must not be afraid of the darkness in order to see the light. One must be able to balance all the realms of the Kabbalistic tree of life in order to reach Kether, the highest realm of the tree of life. In Greek mythology, Ether is the personification of the upper air. He embodies the pure upper air that the gods breathe, as opposed to the normal air breathed by mortals. In Christianity is the Father of the Holy Trinity. Once one reaches the realm of Kether, they are simply in a new Malkuth. Thus the words, as above, so below, are personified. Everything that occurs in this realm manifests in Malkuth. Being desire to bring the world into being, Kether is absolute compassion.
Do that, given that we are just exactly halfway through between our Western New Year and the Lunar New Year, which will loom in a few weeks' time. I think it's also appropriate to wish ourselves a Happy New Year, given what I would like to talk to you about, which has to do with the global economy and what we should expect for 2014. Now I'm going to test you numerology skills by asking you to think about the magic 7. Okay? Most of you will know that 7 is quite a number in all sorts of themes, religions, and I'm sure that you can compress numbers as well.